Arthur, if you are ever deciding to do another gun-related piece in Sonoma County, hit me up. I can help you avoid jail time because you showed proof of actually doing this. Because you don't understand the laws that you're trying to discuss. You wrote a hit piece trying to say that guns are bad and 80%'s bad when you don't understand the laws and managed to commit several crimes along the way that easily could have been avoided. A journalist in the state of California in my local area attempted to write an anti-ghost gun hit piece where somehow he managed to do a little bit of research, but not enough, and actually showed himself on camera committing several crimes along the way. Let's talk about this, but before we do, I do want to say thank you to the sponsor of this channel, USCCA. If you are a gun person like me and you own or carry guns for personal protection, self-defense, either in your home or outside with the CCW or whatever it is that you want to do, I highly recommend that you check out USCCA to be there to help prepare you before the fight and be there for you after the fight. USCCA is a big supporter of this channel. Check out the link in the description. So this article was titled something along the lines of, we had a journalist build a ghost gun to see how hard it is, and it was part of a series of hit pieces. This journalist went through the process of building a polymer 80 pistol in the state of California. He claims that he went through the hoops, but throughout many points in this, it seems as if he didn't know the laws well enough. Probably should have watched a few of my videos. Hey, if you're watching this after you realize that you've committed several crimes, feel free to hit me up at any point if you want to do another hit piece. Maybe I can give you a little bit more information so you don't end up in jail. Now, I'm not a lawyer. This is not legal advice, but I do know quite a few things about the state of California with its gun laws. Now, I'm going to read several sections of this article. I'm going to paraphrase many of them because there's a lot of very long sections that you just really need to know the gist so that I can respond to them. It was one of the more unusual assignments I've had in my nearly 4 decades of journalism. With the problem of ghost guns proliferating not just around California, but the country, my editors wanted me to see how easy it is to get our hands on a firearm that has no serial number and can't be traced. They picked a good month for me to do it, to build a ghost gun. Glocktober is finally here, proclaimed an email in my inbox from an outfit called JSD Supply on October 1st. Hey, JSD Supply has actually supported me in the past. They're the ones that actually sent me this Polymer 80 lower, which is unfinished. We'll discuss why this is unfinished in the state of California. You can very quickly see where the bias or the point of view is coming from. You could probably automatically guess journalist plus state of California, likely going to be anti-gun, especially when you consider that it's from Sonoma County. It's just unfortunate. It's the place we live. It is the way it is. Now, it's going to become more and more apparent that this person isn't well versed with firearms, which is totally fine. But if you're not very well versed in firearms, I would highly recommend that if you're going to write an article on it, you should get a little bit more education. And if you need that education in the future, like I said, reach out. I can maybe help you not break laws on camera again. Now, while these weapons have been around for a decade, law enforcement officers in Sonoma County and across the country have noted a recent dramatic uptick in the numbers of ghost guns being used in violent crimes. The problem is especially acute in California, which on October 13 threw its weight behind a lawsuit against a trio of companies that make and sell ghost guns. So, Sonoma County specifically, if you follow them on Instagram, you follow the various law enforcement pages, wherever you are in the country, you're likely going to see them posting photos anytime they seize a firearm. Now, the interesting thing to note is the biggest stat that they tend to rely on when it comes to discussion of ghost guns and the proliferation or the problem that they are facing is number of seizures. For those of you that are kind of unaware about gun rights or maybe don't understand our point of view is this. Simply being in possession of a firearm doesn't actually mean that you're a bad person. Shocker, right? Being in possession of a ghost gun does not mean that you're a bad person. Many people say like, oh, but look, if they're carrying this ghost gun, it's obviously because they're criminals, right? Are they actually dangerous people, or are they just in possession of an item that is no different than if they just bought it from a gun store? So is it actually about felons and people that they deem shouldn't be allowed to protect themselves while being free people? Is it really about keeping them from having them? Or is it about keeping anyone from having something without the government offering you permission slips to do so? If they're saying that it's about felons and prohibited persons, which I fundamentally disagree with, why are they arresting people who are otherwise allowed to have firearms? Now, here we get into the real meat and potatoes. To help us better understand this issue, the Press Democrat editors asked me to purchase and assemble a ghost gun. They had a lot of questions, but the main one was, how easy is it to buy and build one of these weapons? The answer? Shockingly easy. He manages to fuck it up very hard, but shockingly easy is his description. We'll get into that later. Getting my hands on the parts was a snap. Shopping online, I had no trouble ordering the lower receiver or frame of a pistol in separate transactions. I requested a completion kit for that gun, including the slide, barrel, and trigger mechanism, everything needed to finish your own pistol like a professional without paperwork, promised the supplier. Both packages arrived on my doorstep a few days later after I'd ordered them. Actually building the gun for this unhandy reporter was a heavier lift. Even with the help of 2 friends, it took about a day longer than I expected. But all in all, it took less than 8 hours spread over several days to build a smoothly functioning lethal weapon. You can very clearly, at many points through this article already, see the tone, the bias, and the opinion of the author when they're trying to show like an objective, like, hey, what is this actually like? You can very clearly see where they're coming from and what story they're trying to tell with it, even though they make it seem like it's easy, but that they have a tremendously more difficult time than they should. I could take this non-firearm, this 80%, and turn it into a completed gun probably in about an hour. Got all the parts. I can't legally do that in the state of California with this gun, but he seems to have no problem just going ahead and doing it. So now this next paragraph, we're going to have to kind of discuss some of the laws after I read it. To legally make a homemade firearm in California, you must apply to the state's Department of Justice for a unique serial number. While I did jump through those bureaucratic hoops, many who buy and build ghost guns do not, for the simple, obvious reason that they'd fail the background check. False. Constantly saying that the only reason people buy these guns is because they would fail a background check is objectively false. Most of the people buying these guns are just hobbyists who enjoy building them. Many states have no problem with the actual buying and possession and manufacture of these firearms into actual real firearms. State of California, a little bit different. Now, obviously he did a little bit of research. I wonder if he stumbled across one of my videos, because when we discuss building a firearm in the state of California, with a frame or receiver, which is the legal part of the firearm, if it's made out of metal, it's pretty easy. You just gotta get your serial number engraved after you apply for permission from the state. You then get a personalized serial number from the state. You mill it out, drill it out, whatever you got to do, make it into a firearm, after which you would send photos of that to the Department of Justice, at which point they would say, thank you. Or if they had any questions, if they just couldn't quite see the photos clearly enough, they would ask for more photos or more descriptions, at which point they would actually then consider it completed and call that registered in your name. Now, I said metal. If it's a polymer firearm or a polymer frame or receiver like this, you can't legally build in the state of California a polymer 80 firearm. End of sentence. You cannot do that with one of these. Whether it's an AR or a pistol, whatever it is, you cannot legally build in the state of California a polymer 80. Let's discuss why. In my video where I 3D printed legally a Glock pistol in the state of California, I built this thing with a massive metal wart on it. The reason being, because in the state of California, if you would like to build a polymer firearm from a 80% or from a 3D print, you would have to first apply for a serial number, then get that serial number placed on a 3.7 ounce or heavier piece of 17-4 pH stainless steel. Note, I did not say that it has to be metal anywhere in the gun. The actual piece needs to be one solid piece, it needs to be inside the frame or receiver, and it needs to be actually what you have the serial number engraved on, but it also has to be placed inside the gun in such a way that forcibly removing this massive chunk of metal from the frame or receiver would destroy it or make it inoperable. How did he do that with this polymer 80 or with one of these polymer 80s? Well, he didn't. He didn't. Now, in addition to that, to build a pistol in the state of California from your own either 3D print or polymer 80 or 80%, you have to make the barrel length over 6 inches, I believe, don't quote me on that, with an overall length of over 10 inches. It also has to be a single shot or break top bolt action. So in my 3D printed Glock build, I had to get a bolt action assembly for it, making it a single shot bolt action pistol with a barrel length of over 6 inches and an overall length of over 10 inches. Did he do that? No, we see that very clearly in his videos that he did not do that. So right there, he automatically made an unsafe handgun. We also later find out that he did not actually successfully register it with the state of California, so he did not comply with the state of California's laws. I also highly doubt that he managed to put a serial number on the actual gun in that tiny little spot there, because he seems to lack the technical skill and at no point mentions that he did it. So what did he do? He made an unsafe handgun. He made an unserialized handgun, potentially. He failed to register it with the state. All of those are crimes that are punishable by up to 1 year, several of them carrying heavy fines. Did he get fined? Doesn't seem like it, but I can rest assured, if I tried to do some shit like that and I got caught, oh, I'd be going to jail. They would just double fist right up my bunghole. But it is what it is. That's not even the only crimes he committed. He then goes on to write several paragraphs discussing how JSD Supply and 80% manufacturers are clearly marketing this towards felons, when if you actually look at any of their marketing material, if you discuss anything with them, if you see any of their promotions, they are never discussing felons being in possession of firearms. So when they constantly say, it's so clear that they just want to sell guns to felons because they want to destroy your cities and just make everything a terrible place to live. That's so not true. I understand that's a little bit hyperbolistic of how they write it, but it's how they frame it, and that's just completely not how it's actually marketed. Then in one paragraph he says, politicians from President Joe Biden to California Attorney General Rob Bonta say something must be done about the threat of ghost guns, but before you can solve a problem, you have to first understand it. And that's why he decided to actually build a ghost gun in the state of California, breaking several laws along the way. My question to him is, ghost gun is a wide term. Some counties refer to any firearm with a defaced serial number, any firearm without a serial number, any firearm that was stolen as a ghost gun. Ghost gun is a very hard term to actually track because different jurisdictions define it in different ways. So if he was really after ghost guns and understanding the problem of unregistered firearms or unlawful possession of firearms out there, why didn't he go to the black market? Why didn't he just do a straw purchase like most people do? Most people would just have their friend buy a gun, report it stolen, give it to their buddy, call it a day. But he went out with a specific message trying to specifically say that ghost gun's bad, 80% is bad. These are the things that are really tearing up the streets. Now, remember when we said that he was going to commit some more crimes? Here's where it gets into it. Feeling a twinge of panic as I reviewed the instructions, I texted my neighbor, Nathaniel, who owns several guns and has access to a serious workshop. The next day, we headed to his shop with the kit. Drilling the holes went smoothly. Polymer Eddie pretty much idiot-proofs those steps by including a jig that holds the lower frame of the gun, ensuring the holes go in the right place. It took longer to cut and bore out, then smooth the barrel block. After employing a drill bit, X-Acto knife, and some sandpaper to finish that job, we used a nipper to cut out rectangles of polymer sitting in the way where we needed to sink that trigger housing rail, then the front block. Now, in that sentence, he says we, as in him and Nathaniel utilized a nipper to cut out rectangles of polymer, meaning that during the manufacture of this frame, or the frame that he had, I'm using this as a prop, obviously this is his gun. During the manufacture of that, we, as in him and Nathaniel, manufactured this, which is something that is not legal. If you, in the state of California, or pretty much anywhere in the nation, want to build a Polymer 80 as an individual manufacturer, you yourself have to do all of the work to turn it from an 80% to 100%. Every step of the way from 80% to 100% complete has to be done by you. So for him to say that he was using the assistance of someone else's tools in someone else's workshop with someone else's assistance, he's admitting that he performed what was essentially referred to as a build party back in the day, which again would be illegal. At several points he says I, at several points he says we in relation to the actual completion of this. Again, not legal to do. So then he discusses how the Giffords Law Center says that there's been upwards of 40% in some states or in some counties where they actually say 40% of the firearms recovered or 40% of the firearms seized by law enforcement are actually ghost guns. Again, my big problem with that is the lack of consistency of what is considered a ghost gun. Many places, many police departments still refer to any firearm with a defaced serial number as a ghost gun, or any firearm without a serial number as a ghost gun, when ghost gun is typically referred to or thought to be believed to be a firearm that was made by an unlicensed user, like a just personal, someone in their home with an 80%. This would be considered a ghost gun under the typical colloquial definition of it. But the problem is those definitions aren't consistent across the board. And even then, is simple possession of these firearms actually truly dangerous and illegal? They're using possession, and when people are illegally carrying a firearm, well, the problem is when you use states like California, where places like San Francisco, you can't actually legally obtain a concealed carry weapons permit, you're left with people having to break laws in order to have the legal means of protecting themselves. Myself personally, I have a concealed carry weapons permit for Sonoma County. I can drive to San Francisco with my 3 guns that are on my CCW and wander around totally fine in most places. Someone that lives in San Francisco or the county of San Francisco or the county of Santa Clara or many other counties that are non-issue, if you wanted to actually protect yourself, you would have to choose to break the law. That doesn't seem right to me. So many people that are caught in these areas like San Francisco or Marin or Santa Clara, San Jose, with these ghost guns are doing it because they can't actually get a legal means to conceal carry a firearm. So again, is simple possession without committing any other crime, without being a danger to yourself or others, without doing anything else, is that truly worth ruining someone's life and arresting them? I don't really think so. Now, one specific sentence, they say, we have laws against burglary. Do people still break into homes and steal stuff? Sure, he said, but the laws discourage that. They come with consequences. And I think that this is a really unfair comparison. Comparing burglary to building a gun in your own home, totally different things. One of those creates a victim directly. By breaking into someone's home and stealing from them, you are committing a crime and creating a victim. By building a gun in your own home without stealing anything from anyone or possessing one of these, that doesn't actually create a victim. The fair comparison would be comparing using a firearm to commit a crime like murder, assault, robbery. Those are fair comparisons. Possession, manufacture, and just ownership of firearms is not a crime and is not dangerous inherently. I don't think that's a fair comparison to make, and I think that many people still think that's a fair comparison to make, when it's not. Now then he goes on to discuss that, the initial drilling out the few spots only took him about 2 hours, and then it was the actual phase 2 of assembly, the final fitment, that's actually what took him more like days. And I think that's a fair comparison to make. I think that's a fair thing to say. With these homemade firearms, you're typically not going to have a perfectly functioning gun right off the rip. You're most likely going to have to do a lot of fitting, making sure they fit properly. Little tiny 1-degree errors of how you drill holes can severely mess up your ability to use this gun functionally. Typically, they have a little bit of a break-in period. Once you kind of get used to that, he discusses going on Reddit and seeing what people are saying about the actual fitment. And I think that's very fair. I think a lot of people sometimes drill out a few holes, get it all good, and it works perfectly fine. But many more people, it takes, a few range trips to really get it dialed in. I will admit that when he discusses the magazine spring on the Glock and inserting that's fairly difficult. But everything else when it comes to assembling the slide and frame of a Glock is actually super simple. But if you're not mechanically inclined like this guy is, it can take a while. Do I think it should have taken 2 days? No, not at all. I think in a few hours, I could probably have this completely perfectly functional. But again, I'm more of a gun guy than the average person. Now here is again where we discuss another crime being committed. At the end of that, he said, my friend, the gun expert, took the pistol home overnight and spent a few more hours troubleshooting. By that time he was finished, the slide was sliding. The gun was cycling flawlessly, he reported, and ready for the range. Congrats on transferring. Congrats on unlawfully transferring possession of a firearm, unlawfully transferring possession of an unsafe handgun, and unlawful transfer of a ghost gun in the state of California. I don't really agree with these laws to begin with, but you would think that if someone was going to go through the effort of documenting and filming this, they would have looked into the legality of it, which clearly we then see that he failed to actually properly register it with the state of California, meaning that he did nothing the legal route and went the same exact route that criminals do, that he claims are the bad people of society. He did all those things. But again, do you think that he's an inherently dangerous or bad person? No. So, should these things be illegal? I don't know. It seems as if it's the individual who would commit violent crimes against someone that we should be punishing, not punishing people simply for possessing a piece of plastic that could be turned into a gun. We then get into he tried to buy ammunition, and this is really where it proves he did none of the right steps with the state of California. Before heading to a shooting range, I went to Sportsman's Arms in Petaluma to pick up a 10-round magazine and some bullets. But California requires a point-of-sale background check to buy ammunition. When the guy behind the counter swiped my driver's license, he shook his head. "It's not letting me sell you the ammo," he said. He glanced at a document that I'd handed him. On it, I'd underlined the unique serial number. "Is your gun registered?" he asked. "I thought I'd done that by applying for the serial number," I replied. With great patience, he explained that no, I still needed to register the weapon with the state because I hadn't. He couldn't legally sell me the ammunition. As he spoke, he put his hand over the 50-round box of bullets on the counter, sliding it away from me. So again, you cannot legally build one of these in the state of California because you would have to somehow manage to place inside this gun permanently in a way where you can still see the serial number that you engrave on it, which he clearly did not do. You would have to make it with a barrel length over 6 inches, an overall length of over 10 inches. You would have to make it bolt action or break action, single shot. It's just impossible to actually legally build a Polymer 80 in the state of California. And if he did literally any research, he would have been able to determine this. Again, Arthur, if you are ever deciding to do another gun-related piece in Sonoma County, hit me up. I can help you avoid jail time because you showed proof of actually doing this. Because you don't understand the laws that you're trying to discuss. You wrote a hit piece trying to say that guns are bad and 80% is bad when you don't understand the laws and managed to commit several crimes along the way that easily could have been avoided. For those of you that are frequent of this channel, you might already have been very well aware of this kind of thing, but if you want to leave a comment, drop what your opinions are, let me know down in the description below. You guys know the drill. Have fun, be safe, stay dangerous. Peace.